Hello and welcome to Queendom TV, and thank you so much to everybody who has been showing so much support to me at the moment. I really appreciate it, guys, and it's been so much fun talking to you guys, getting to know you guys and everything. So if you haven't taken advantage of that, guys, definitely hit me up in the comments. You can contact me via all the links in my description box as well, so check those out if you're interested. Today we're going to be continuing discussing Jesy Nelson, which honestly, guys, I have to say, I'm so grateful you guys brought this stuff to my attention and for everything you guys have been showing me, because it's just crazy, right? It's just crazy. I feel like I say this every time, but the more I see things, like I literally find myself like looking for you guys' emails or like the tweets that you send me and the DMs, and I'm just here like with my mouth literally open. But today I want to talk about, Jesy being treated like a product and not a person. Now, I must say this at the very, very beginning, that this is something I have spoken about on my channel a lot. And I speak a lot about how, the entertainment industry is a business. So although to those of us who, or those of you who are a fan of somebody, you look at them as like supporting somebody's talent and somebody's artwork, etc., which you are, the people in control, management, labels, venues and places, things like that, they very much look at this as a business. And I think one of the reasons I even made my channel is to speak against the times where people start to be treated more like a product than they are a person, right? Because to a lot of people in the industry, especially the higher people whose names you've probably never heard, who are the ones who are making way more than the artists that we are supporting a lot of the time, they are the ones who are just looking at this as a numbers game. And I think Jesy is a perfect example of this, and I really want to delve into this as part of the series because I think this contributed a lot, and she spoke out herself about it while she was still in Little Mix. And that's why I think it's actually kind of a nice video to include, that not everything's all to do with, the blackfishing and whatnot that took place after the fact, but there are a lot of the reason why she wanted to leave in the first place is because of what she went through, obviously. And I think this perfectly highlights it. And I just wanted to acknowledge that it's definitely not just her, because like nowadays when you talk about stuff, everybody, as soon as you defend one person, everybody's like, well, you forgot about so and so who went through that as well. Well, I know many people go through it, and I talk about that a lot, and I'm using her as an opportunity to give an example. And so if you feel there's anybody else that needs to be spoken about, guys, as I always say, let me know in the comments. I've got upcoming videos about other people I haven't spoken about yet, purely based on the things you guys have sent me. So I'm looking at my notes, by the way, guys, if you're wondering why I'm like looking over here. So one thing that shocked me, and one of you guys sent me this article via email that was talking about how once she was injected 50 times, or she said like 50 times. So I want to say be specific about stuff like that, so that people could say, well, if somebody has a source and it turns out she was only injected 47 times, that they can't try and say that I'm lying. So she herself said she was injected like 50 times, right? So let's just clarify that. Now, backtrack. This was all for a performance that Little Mix did as a group on America's Got Talent in 2015. And it was for Simon Cowell. It was a big situation. Like, it's a big deal, of course. America's Got Talent. They came up on a talent show like that as well. And so for them to perform on America's Got Talent in front of Simon Cowell, I'm sure was a big deal and a lot of pressure. And obviously people had high stakes, because a lot of people were inspired, by the likes of Little Mix and groups like that were put together, or even just soloists as well. I want to talk about this specifically because there were a few things that she mentioned, and there was an article that one of you guys sent me, and I can't remember what who wrote the article now. Well, there's an article that one of you guys sent me, and it was really sad to hear some of the things she said. One of the things she said is that she couldn't even remember much about performing, and it was the worst thing that she had to do. Now, she's spoken about in lots of different places while she was in the group, in her documentary, etc., and other places. She's talked about, the pressures of not having a break, and even in this same article, they quoted, I think it was a book. You guys can let me know, is there like a book that they wrote together or something like that? It sounds like there was like a book or something that either Little Mix had written together or been written about them. I think it was like autobiographies or something. But yeah, you guys let me know. And basically, this article was quoting in there how she talked about in the book that she had mentioned that, people don't realize that you're not allowed to have a break in this job, in a normal job. if you're unwell, if you're not doing too good, you know, you can have some sick leave. Even that's hard, to be honest. And I've spoken about why I don't like how the working world is today. It doesn't give people the time that they need when they're grieving, when they're having mental health issues. Because sometimes it's not always that, you know, your legs falling off. Sometimes I think people need like a week off because they're struggling, you know, with their mental health. And I think that is fully, honestly, biblically, I think that is fully understandable. God is the number one person who tells people to take a break when they need it, you know. Like this happened with Elijah in the Bible at a certain point when he was feeling literally suicidal. This is in the Bible. And God was like, he gave him some food and he told him to take a nap. Like, you need some food and you need a rest. Okay, just take a nap. And then after that, it actually says that he had he went on for like 40 days without even food, and it's like an angel brought him the food and everything. So I just say that to say that I also am very much not a part of and not in agreement with this whole idea that everybody's just work, and you don't have times or ways where you can stop when you need it and take a break. I absolutely think that's important, and I absolutely think that's important for the people we're supporting in the entertainment industry. It really upsets me a lot, you know. As somebody who works in the industry as well, it really upsets me a lot how they're not able to do that, because I think for those of us who are supporting people, we would want them to be looked after. You know, so many of you guys, so many of you baddies who are like watching, the reason why you're so passionate about everything is because you wanted to help Jesy be looked after. You wanted her to be in a better place. You know, a lot of you yourself, like myself, what it's like when you need time, when you need to just, you know, backtrack. Maybe you've got a health issue, maybe it's mental health, maybe it's, you know, things to do with your family. I mean, even she talked about how her mum had a heart condition and she wanted to take off some time to be with her, and she ended up getting so stressed. She'd already had an ear infection. She got so stressed that her ear infection started bleeding on top of that as well, you know. And that's because I don't believe we were ever made to be just work. That's very much a worldly thing. From what my understanding is in the Bible, how God intended for us to do things, there was work, there was time, and it says there's a time for this and there's a time for that. There's a time to dance, there's a time to cry, there's a time to work, there's a time to rest. You know, that's not me directly quoting the Bible, but it says something like that, you know. So I really was upset to see that even at the time when her mum was going through something, because to me, again, if I had an employee and they had something going on with their family, I would want to help with them work around it. Do you think? And she said in there something like how they tried to say to her like, oh, well, you know, it wouldn't look good to the fans if you didn't show up to all the shows, all four of you always have to be there. But I think actually, if she couldn't be there, and then she said, she like put out a message and said, hey fans, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it today, you know, I've got a family member who's not doing well. I think those of us, I personally would be so happy that she's taken the time off, and I'll be happy to instead be spending time, you know, praying for her and her family and what's going on, and sending her support and well wishes. And I'll be happy to know that she's dealing with what's going on. Because the other thing that scares me as well about the industry, and I think this is something that Jesy's obviously experienced as well, is because they put so much pressure on you. And the Spice Girls face the same thing. You know, the Spice Girls talked about, and Jerry left the Spice Girls, and one of the things that about the Spice Girls that they all spoke about was that as soon as they just took off, and it was just like manic. They were flying all over the world, doing all these different tours, doing all these different things. You know, there was no time to take a break. And so I think for a lot of situations, from what it seemed like, even from the Jerry situation with the Spice Girls, it seemed like to me like maybe if she had had a way that she felt she could honestly just tell her bandmates, like, I need to take a step back, and that would have been okay. She might not have felt the need to just abruptly leave, but she kind of abruptly left, you know, in the end, right? And I think that's what happens in a lot of these situations where, because there's so much pressure and it comes from the industry, it's not from the fans. That's why it really annoys me. I know it's not the fans, because yes, of course, as a fan, you want them to get the new music, you know. We're all waiting here to see what Jesy's next going to be producing. And I've been even seeing you guys talking about this on Instagram. We've been it's been coming up and stuff. But at the same time, our number one priority, of course, is for them to be actually okay and to look after them. And I think that's why a lot of you baddies have really been so supportive and defensive on behalf of Jesy, you know, to enable her to do what she needs to do to be the best version of herself. And I believe the reason why we're supposed to rest, the reason why even God tells us that we need to rest or take time, you know, and that there's a time and season for everything, is because we're our best version of ourselves when we're in our best place, you know. And we're in our best place mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The work we do is going to be the best that it is. And that's why I believe, you know, that it is important to look after ourselves. So it's a shame that she wasn't able to do this. Yes, I get it was a big deal, right? But life happens. And I think it would actually be helpful in the industry if they normalize the fact that everybody's not on 100% of the time. I think they make it seem, and I think the fact that, you know, the industry does that, it's actually detrimental because the artists have to feel like they're on 100%. They have to have their body has to be perfect. Their look has to be perfect. Their hair has to be perfect. Their voice has to be perfect. They have to be at every single performance, and every single thing has to be perfect, right? And then it gives us, the people watching, yes, it encourages us. We support that because obviously excellence is beautiful. When you see something that's done well, we're all impressed by that, you know, and I think that's a great thing. But then also it causes us to want to live up to these standards. This is why people compare their like body types and say like, oh, I want to look like so-and-so, I want to look like so-and-so who's famous. But then a lot of those people are having like their own personal nutritionists, and they're like, you know, having their own personal plans and personal trainers. You know, that's why people like are training with Kim Kardashian's personal trainer, you know, because there's this whole like perfection that everybody wants to have and to attain, that the celebrities are forced to uphold, and then we the fans, we support because it's great, we like to see things that are excellent, but then it also backfires for us as well, because then we want to hold ourselves up to those standards as well, which is just unreasonable. And I think it would be so much greater if we could just appreciate, you know, if we could understand that like people need time to rest, people need time to look after themselves. And like even with these whole 50 injections things, like with Jesy, you know, she was saying that her shoulder went and she couldn't move, and she just had like 50 injections put into her, and her back was smothered in bruises. And I'm just like, for those of you guys who know me very well, I'm not a big fan of just drugging up people, you know, like for not like where it's not necessary. In situations like this, I'm sure a week's rest, you know, like how like when you go to the doctors or you go to the GP, a lot of the time, right, you'll go there and you might have something serious, like your knee might have been really playing up or your whatever, and they might just say to you, I think you need a week's rest or I think you need 2 weeks rest. A lot of the time rest is actually all the medicine you need, you know. And I think for her and for the life they were all living, and this isn't just for Jesy, this goes for the girls as well in general. Like I said, it's for all of them. I believe people should have that. But again, I think the focus for the people in control, and I have a video, it hasn't come out yet, but you guys should watch it, and it's called like the Hollywood the music industry business deal, right? Or business, whatever, something to do with that, right? And I basically talk about in that video, I basically talk about how what they do in the entertainment industry is they use and abuse, and they use people, abuse them, and then they dispose of them when they're no longer useful, just like a product, right? Just like the way you would have a toothpaste, you buy the toothpaste, you use your toothpaste, we know you may not necessarily abuse it, maybe you do, right? But then once it's empty, once it no longer serves you, you throw it away, right? Disposed. And that's why I say that they're being treated like a product. She's being treated like a product as opposed to being a person, because a person, you would go, actually, I need to look after you. You look like you're not doing too well. Should we take a step back? Should we do this? Should we do that? You know, but they put a lot of pressure onto these artists because they're like, well, we're going to book up your tour for the next 5 years and you're not going to be able to say anything or whatever, rather than instead saying, let's understand where everybody's at. Let's support each other. Because of course, the thing that I feel like the industry uses against these artists is they'll say stuff like, you don't want to let your fans down. But as a fan, right, if you were offered, let's say, if somebody that you support, right, does, let's say, 3 tours in a year, right? This is just an example to just illustrate something. If somebody that you support does 3 tours in a year, right, and you're somebody who says you're going to go to all 3 tours, right, and then you've bought tickets for all those 3 tours, but then they say that the 3rd tour they're not going to be able to do it, and then you don't get to go to tour, right? You'll be disappointed. But if they only ever said they were going to do 1 tour, you would never know the difference. And so if they then show up to that tour, you're not going to be disappointed. You're going to be happy. And yes, you may feel like you wish you could see them more, etc. As we all do, you know, it's normal that we always want a lot of the things that we like, you know. But you're not going to be disappointed in that way. And so I feel like what they do a lot of the time is they overbook them, a lot of these artists, right? Like a product, like you're going to be here. And then it puts the pressure on the artist who genuinely loves and cares about their supporters and their fans. and doesn't want to let the fans down, and then they put themselves through whatever they have to put themselves through just to not let the fans down, when in reality the industry should be looking after them, and the industry should be saying, look, we would be great to do like 3 tours. Is that realistic? Maybe the girls say yeah, or maybe a couple of them are like, no, let's do just 2. Okay, we'll do 2. Is 2 manageable? Yeah, let's do 2. How about we do the first tour we'll put here, and that's going to be the biggest one, and then we'll say with the other one, we'll put that one, we'll start planning towards it, but we won't release the tickets just yet, and we'll reconvene in about 2 months' time to confirm if we're still all okay to do that. Do you see how easy this stuff could be doing? Could be doing. Do you see how easy it could be to do this stuff, you know? But the thing is, the people don't care about that. That's what I'm saying. The people don't care about looking after the artists. And I think a lot of artists are just happy to go along with it. And I think that's one of the things that actually offends people about Jesy more than anything, is not even necessarily the fact that she went solo, but the fact that she decided to go and pursue what was best for her. As in, I'm not going to feel pressured by you and you and you. Because look at how she's releasing her music now. She released Boys. We haven't yet heard anything massive since then, like, although we know she's working on a lot of stuff. Now she's taking her time. She's taking control of her career. She's not having to kill herself, right? Literally. Because the thing is, that's what literally was happening, right? Not having to kill herself and be injected nearly 50 times and having her ear bleeding because she can't spend time with her mum and all sorts, right? Just to meet standards that were not even set by the fans or her supporters or the people who've been buying her CDs and who've been listening to her music and who've been buying tickets to come and see her, but actually the people who are in control who don't have to do that. Do you see what I mean? And I think actually that is what's so inspirational for a lot of you guys, I'm sure, as well, about her, is that she's showing that you can't be perfect all the time. Everybody makes mistakes. She even said that. I think that's one of the reasons why she's not really spoken against her bandmates as much as, well, her bandmates have taken the opportunity to say certain things, which we're going to talk about in another video. But, you know, because she's like, look, we all make mistakes. We're all human. And it's like what I say. It's the exact philosophy. I want to say philosophy, but really it's a biblical thing. That we are all imperfect, right? We all are striving to be the best, of course. We're all trying, but we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have off days. We're all going to disappoint people at a certain point. And we have to learn that is a part of life. We're imperfect. Like I always say, the only person who was perfect was Jesus, right? We are all imperfect. And that's why we're not supposed to put people up to these standards, and that's why I don't like that the industry pushes this as if it's a realistic thing to attain, because then those of us watching are like, yeah, that's oh, I wish I could be like so-and-so, I wish I could be like so-and-so, not knowing behind closed doors, as we're learning from Jesy, you know, that it's not all it turns out to be, you know. So that was really, really sad, you know. And she said that she was getting fed her coffee to wake her up during hair and makeup. And like, I'm envisioning it, right? When I'm envisioning this whole story, by the way, sorry, I don't know what's making noise in here. Something's just creaking. If anything, it's probably my angels. Where was I? Yeah, so this is how I was envisioning it, right? When she, because I'm a very visual person, right? When she was talking about getting injected, getting the coffee to wake her up during her hair and makeup, it's like she's basically like, clearly, you know, like when you're not feeling well, right? Or you're not doing too well, in whichever way that is, you go through the stages, and the first couple of stages, the first few stages are invisible to most people. They won't be able to tell anything, but you internally can start to feel like, oh, my body's not feeling its best, or I'm having a bit of a headache, or I'm feeling a bit tired, more tired than usual, whatever. And then as things start to progress, then maybe it starts to be a bit more visible. Maybe people can see that you're not talking as much, or you just don't seem yourself. You know, people say stuff like that. And then as time goes on, people might start to notice what it is. Like, you might keep, like, you know, massaging your shoulder. You know, like there's all these stages, right? So I feel like Jesy had already gone all the way to the later stages of her not being well. Like, to the point of she's saying her shoulder went. She couldn't move. She's being injected, like, how many times? They're giving her coffee to try and wake her up. Like, it's one thing to offer somebody a coffee, right? And this is me again pointing out the little details. It's one thing to give somebody a coffee, fine, or offer them one. It's another thing to be like, you need this coffee. It reminds me of like how, you know, like when people have been drinking too much, and then you have the friend, and it's like the same thing, right? You go through the stages, people go through the stages of, oh, do you need some water? Like, and then you need to drink this water, or you need to drink this coffee. Do you see what I mean? It's the same vibe. Like, she was clearly in a state that was so far that she needed to be given this stuff, and she's pointing out that she was given it just to wake her up, and then she refers to this experience as the worst thing she had to do. And you know what's the saddest part of all of this for me as well? It's the fact that because she shows up, because she still performs, because she still does what she needs to do. I mean, she says she barely even remembers performing. Like, she's so good at what she does, and she's so as many of them are. That's why I really think that people in the sports and entertainment industries are some of the strongest people out there. Really, they are, because they still show up despite all this stuff, right? They still show up to work, and their work isn't like, you know, for different types of work where you can get away with maybe not being your best, you know, especially like nowadays when you work from home, no one has to know. There's no sort of, what, how is an artist going to be a work from home? It doesn't work, because people want to see your tour. You have to get up, you have to dance, you know, this same body that she's just been injected in, that's now running through with coffee, which coffee, when you drink a lot of it, has a lot of symptoms as well. You know, she could be feeling nauseous, she could be feeling like she needs to go to the toilet, because that's another thing that happens with coffee. She could be going through all this stuff, but what is she doing? She's performing this massive gig, singing. Her singing has to be on top, even though whatever she's got going on is happening, and dancing. It's a lot, you know, to go through. And that's why it upsets me that this is what these guys have to face. And I don't blame her for saying this is the worst thing that she had to do. I presume that was also at the time of when this was written, which I believe was in like 2017, 2018, I think. So, you know, it's really sad that this is how people are treated, you know. And I definitely feel that because they go through these things, because she was willing to step out, because and unfortunately, and let's just backtrack on this as well, because a lot of people act like Jesy just went out and like she just did it as if she was just being selfish. She more than once attempted or wanted to unalive herself, for starters. She went through all of these things. She did this for her health in the end. She didn't even do this because of all the stuff that I'm telling you about, like how much she was treated like a product, how much she had to do this, she couldn't have a break, she wasn't able to be around for people the way she wanted to. She didn't even do it for that. So the fact that she stepped out, to me, is extremely brave, because she was putting her career on the line. And this is how they make it seem. I know this is what they do in the industry. They make it seem like if you don't do all this stuff, if you don't meet all these requirements, if you don't meet all these expectations, your career is on the line. You may not succeed the way you want to. You know, that's really how a lot of them make it seem. And so I think that's why a lot of them live under that pressure. And of course, because the industry being how it is, right, you think you need, and I talk a lot about on my channel about how, look, you don't need anybody to you don't need a label, you don't need management, etc. I advise maybe management might be helpful, but again, in terms of management, probably choose somebody that you actually trust in your own life to manage you, because a lot of managers and a lot of labels and stuff, they tell you stuff, because this is what people do. They take advantage of you when you are in a vulnerable place, right? Especially when it comes to the entertainment industry. And I had a discussion with this with a friend of mine. We were talking about how this ageist thing where everybody feels like they have to achieve everything so young. And I was saying that the reason why they do that is because when you're young, you're more susceptible to feeling like you have to do things because people have told you. Whereas the older you get, the more you realize that I don't have to do that, because I don't have to do it this way. No, you cannot force me to do 3 tours this year. I'm doing 1 tour this year, you know? And so a lot of them, and this is again another thing that I've seen in other groups, I saw this happening even with the Spice Girls, you know, a lot of things that they did when they were young, they were told what they were having to be done. Similarly with what I think goes on here, people get told and they feel forced, because it's easier to control somebody when they're younger. When they get older, this is why I think as well, a lot of them, the older they get, the more they realize like they're going to step away. And that's why I say that, represent yourself. Don't jump in quickly to have a record label. They make having things like record labels and stuff like the number one thing you want to do. I don't think that. I think build yourself a following, if anything, because when you have a following, right, then you have something to say. That's why influencers today, you see how influencers have become very powerful in the business room. You know why? Because they are the ones with the fans, and they got their fans themselves. So nobody can try and take accountability for like, oh, well, you're not gonna have a platform without us, or like what they might say to the likes of people like Jesy Nelson. I'm not saying they said this, but they could potentially say stuff like, oh, well, you guys only have supporters because you were listening to us and we told you how to do this, and if you didn't do this the way we were telling you, then you wouldn't have, sorry guys, I'm just trying to fix something. If you didn't listen to us, then you wouldn't have the fans that you have now, and you wouldn't have the career. Because that's what a lot of these people do, you know. A lot of these people, they will make people feel like you need us, right? When the reality is, and this is the reality is they need you. The reality is they need you because you are the talent. The talent person is the most needed person. And this is what the industry does not want people to realize. Not at all. And that's why the best thing we can always do is support the person that we support, you know, and support them, you know, and want to see what their wants are, you know, as opposed to what somebody else is telling them. Because the thing that they always do is they always take advantage of the fact that, you know, the talent thinks that they need the label. You don't need the label, especially not in this day and age. Like, that's why so many people are doing well, because of YouTube and because of TikTok and stuff like that. Why? Because they're creating what they want and they've got a strong fan base. Do you know why they've got a strong fan base? Because the fans fall in love with the person. And so when the person needs a break, what happens? The fans are understanding of it. They're like, take the time you need. We'll be here when you come back. Obviously, you have the people who are sad and hateful. We always have people like that. It's the world we live in, yada, yada, yada. But fans can be so much more understanding. And you see that, like, I see that a lot on YouTube, like when people disappear. And I've experienced that myself. If there's a YouTuber or somebody, if they disappear for a while, I'm like, you know what? If they need to do that for themselves, go ahead. I don't even expect an explanation until maybe whenever they're ready or whatever. And a lot of the time, they'll give it to you anyway because they actually care. And you see, that is so much more of a healthy relationship between a talent, and I'm calling them talent because there's many different types of talent, you know, that you could be, not necessarily just singing and stuff like that, you know, the talent and, you know, their supporters. And really those are the people who should really have the power there. And the only reason you should be including the likes of labels and managers is if it's actually going to add value to what you're doing for you and for your fans. And really it's for you first, because if it's not adding value for you, then you're not going to be doing the best version of yourself, but then also ideally your fans as well, because you would care about your fans. But like, if you're going to add in those people, they should only add to that. So for example, if you're now so swamped, you've got so many things you want to do that you need support now, you know, kind of thing, then it's good to be looking into stuff like that. But then even with that, you should be careful, and you should be the one happy to say, well, no, I'm not going to accept this. I don't want to do that, or I do want to do that. And you should be able to have management labels, you know, in things like music producers, whoever, who are wanting to support what your vision is for yourself, you know. And I really believe that God gives us all our vision for ourselves. I believe we internally, to me, like, me having a relationship with God is like me learning how him, like, birthing out of me something that is already inside of me. Do you get what I'm saying? And I really think that's what it's supposed to be like. Whereas the industry that looks at people as a product, what do? They see you, they see that you can sing, they see that you can dance, they see that you can do this, and they look at the market, i.e. the world today, and they say, oh, how can we profit off of you? How can we get millions and millions of sales and be shaving off a 20% off the top for ourselves, you know? And that's why a lot of people are branded in a certain way. Like a lot of people, we've talked about this Little Mix brand and stuff like that. Why are they in a brand? Because a brand sells, right? A brand sells in a business sense. In a person-to-person sense, you can be sold off somebody's vibe. You can be sold off somebody's personality. You can just like someone. You can just be like, you know what? I really like this person. And I just like what they have to say. I like how they live their life, you know? And so whatever that person does, you want to support those things as well, because you support that person or you trust in that person, you know? And that's where I say the whole influencer thing has come more into it. Whereas, you know, and from a business perspective, and I've done business courses myself where you're like, oh, you have to have a brand because you sell the brand. Then you have to find with your brand, you find your target audience, and then you sell to your target audience. And it's all very business. Like I said, it's all very much about a product, which is a product which has a brand, right? And then what do you call it? And how you're going to sell it and whatever. That's why, you know, you have the brand of, like, you know, McDonald's, for example. It's got its own brand, its color brand. You expect that if you go to McDonald's in London and then you go to McDonald's in Manchester and you go to McDonald's here and there, you're going to have the exact same Big Mac if you order a Big Mac. But then on the other hand, the way they brand stuff like that as well is that when you go to America, it's different. If you go to McDonald's in Japan, it's different. If you go to Japan and, you know, McDonald's, wherever, it's different, because what have they done? They've seen a target market that they've tried to sell to, right? sell a product. Now, when it's a product and it's an inanimate object, by all means, that's great. That's great advice. When we're talking about people, that is when it becomes problematic, because people themselves have a right. You know, we talk so much about rights in this day and age, and I fully believe that God gave us the right of free will. He gave us free will. That's why he doesn't even force himself onto people. People try to force him onto people, but he doesn't force himself onto people, right? So to me, that means the fact that he gave us free will is that we choose how our life goes. We choose for ourselves. Nothing is supposed to be forced onto us. And that's what I don't like about the industry. That's why I personally love working in the industry and getting to know with people what they want their career to be, how they want to do it. You know, what is it that's inside of them that they want to, you know, put out there. And I think that's where Jesy is now with what she's doing. She's at a place finally where I feel, and I'm hoping and praying, that she can work on what she needs to in the timing that she needs to. And guess what? Look at us. The fans are there waiting patiently / also impatiently, because everybody can't wait for her music, myself included, you know, for what she's going to do next. She knows that her fans are there. She's talking to the fans every now and then. I know she threw out a message on Valentine's Day on Instagram, you know, and the fans are there and are supportive. Because why? Because you support the person and you see them as a person, not a product. However, the industry, a lot of people in the industry look at the people that we support as a product, and that is the problem. And I think for Jesy taking the initiative and also having the bravery to step out and to risk her career, because a lot of people in the career, you know, they make the thing, they have the tendency to say stuff like, oh, we made you, you'll never succeed without us, you'll do this and that. And that's where I think a lot of the hate comes from as well. A lot of the hate that she's facing, especially when we're including other people who are like, why are you even talking like M and EK? A lot of them, I think they are offended by the fact that she was willing to risk something that they weren't. You know, because it's very comfortable. This is what people don't talk about. As much as it's horrible, it's comfortable knowing that there's a bunch of people in control of your career who are going to make sure that you get paid, make sure you get to, you know, live the life you want to live, make sure you get to make music, maybe not necessarily the music you always want or whatever. It can be comfortable to a certain extent, you know, and usually the option that's best for us, you know, a lot of the times it can be a little bit harder to attain than something that's, you know, more comfortable to do. That's why it's uncomfortable for people to follow their dreams, but it's very comfortable for them to do what they would class as a safe option. I talk about this a lot, that people have these ideas in life of safe options, which based on what's happened the last couple of years, we know there's not really any safe option, which is why I say to any of you, if you have a dream, go for it. Why not? What have you got to lose, right? You know? But, you know, and even here, I've just read, and I'm so glad I looked back at this, it says that she felt like a robot, never allowed time off. You know, a robot, what is that, guys? It's a product, you know. And so I think kudos to Jesy, and big support to her and applause for making that brave step to actually step away and risking potentially, you know, losing a lot of things, and choosing what matters most. Because honestly, guys, nothing is worth it if you are not okay. This is the thing. I've learned this lesson the hard way. Like, I've achieved many things in my life, many things that I never thought I would achieve, right? And the reason why I took a step back from doing a lot of these things, and the reason why I took a step back from the industry itself, is like, I realized that if I'm not the best, if I'm not feeling the best on the inside, if I'm not where I need to be on the inside, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to be good enough. I'm still going to struggle, you know, with different things. And I've noticed that with other people. That's why a lot of people, they become rich and stuff, and then they're still unhappy, you know, because you have to be okay within yourself and on a path that you're that's fulfilling you. That's when it's worth it. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. And that's why I think, you know, a lot of people who are still in the industry, maybe not feeling comfortable to step away like Jesy has, I think a lot of them are also jealous of the fact that she just said, you know what, I'm going to choose that I don't have to live this way. I'm going to choose another option because I cannot afford to get to a state of wanting to unalive myself for the third time. And what if it happens, you know? And we're all here grateful that she didn't succeed. And I'm grateful for any of you who, if you have tried anything like that or tried to do anything like that, right? I'm grateful you haven't succeeded, because you have a purpose and a reason. You have been put on this planet, you know. And unfortunately, the world that we live in makes it really hard for us, but it's worth it. But we have to start with ourselves, you know. And yeah, so that's what I got to say about that today. Thanks again to all of you guys for all of your videos that you send me, articles, emails, DMs. I'm getting through them now. I'm actually getting through them now really well. So just bear with me as always, but I know you guys are so patient and so incredible. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to the baddies. Shout out to the new subscribers. Thanks for joining. Shout out to the old subscribers. Thanks for sticking around for my craziness. You guys have no idea how much that means to me. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and check out my other videos. I do have the whole Jesy Nelson playlist that you guys can check out. The other videos, I try to keep them all in order of how I upload them, so you can just like watch through. But if you also want to, I do lots of other videos, so check out my other videos as well. Other than that, I love you all. God bless every single one of you in the name of Jesus, and I'll catch you in my next one. Goodbye.